Welcome back. The topic we're looking at today is conflict and crisis, the judges.
In our study, we follow history, looking for clues on how is this controversy developing between rebellion and redemption.
Last week we saw that God invited individuals or families to represent His side of the conflict. This lesson we see He has chosen a whole nation for the same purpose. The crisis we have been talking about has grown big in popularity. The world will know about God via Israel's experiences from now on.
Sure, this is one way to look at it.
Now that the conflict has outgrown the family, God will manage the crisis with leaders that are above family or tribal authority. He will choose men and women. And it's worth stressing out that God found strength and confidence in women too, to uplift and to inspire the leaders and the nation. So let's look at who they are and what they did.
We will, but let me first know that I see this time after entering into the promised land as time to build the relationship between Israel and God. Time for maturing. We are stubborn people, so we go through ups and downs, but as people, Israel was building a life with God. Look at the memory verse. And Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation." This is good. It shows maturity. But it's not easy. So, okay, let's look at some of those leaders. Our actions and the display of our business with God influences others. So,
It sounds like Deborah was a strong, strict, but wise judge in her time. Her word meant trust, power, and authority. Her actions were unpopular, just on the contrary, challenging. Her secret was in the confidence that she had in believing the God of her fathers. This same confidence inspired a general and 10,000 men army to go on a battle. She walked the walk, she lived what she preached.
Deborah understood that the battle is God's. This is crucial. We are involved in it. We have to take our part in it. But when we get it, it's not just about us. It changes things. It is important also to give example, to encourage, to testify about our experience with God. This is how, from an oppressed minority, Deborah rose to a leader. These were some weird times though.
After 40 years of peace and prosper, in the Israel practices nothing has changed. Again, they did evil before the Lord and they worshipped other gods. And as it is expected, they were left alone under the oppression of the Midianites this time. What is the new and the different? God brings a new representative who is the least of the least, Gideon. He comes from the smallest of the tribes, Naphtali, and he is the youngest son in the family of farmers.
In these first examples, we see how difficult it is for men to understand God. We feel confident only when we are in charge and have the power, while God is trying to help us understand that our strength and power are in Him and in our dependence of Him. So, you are saying about Gideon?
His actions are clear. He strictly obeys the angel's instructions. He is still a simple man, but bold to talk to God face to face and to put up front his demands and conditions. And surprisingly, God doesn't seem to mind that. He fulfills all of his wishes. And let's not forget at the end how everything started, demolishing the altar of Baal and building a new altar for the Lord. The message was clear. The battle line between good and evil was very crisp. It's about who do you worship.
Gideon learned to trust God. And this is how 300 men defeated an entire army. The lesson skips several judges and then jumps to one of the last.
And in the story of Samson, the big battle between good and evil is paralleled between, first, the Israel's conflict with the Philistines, and on the other side, second, the personal intimate relationship of Samson with his women. Those two go hand in hand throughout the whole historical record. They're tightly intertwined. One depends on the other. For Samson, the inner conflict with a woman determined the events that will unfold in the conflict between the Israelites and the Philistines. And it comes to show that the big conflict that we're talking about this whole quarterly is working on a multiple level, on a personal, intimate level, and on a bigger, national, global level. And most importantly, they're interdependent. We cannot separate one from the other.
What a story is this! There is pressure when you have been destined for something, dedicated, raised in a special way, prepared, given special gifts and powers. The expectations are huge, and many people are depending on you. No pressure. In Samson, once again, I see our freedom. At the end, it's up to us and our choices. The struggles are huge. The path is personal, and it's almost never too late to get it right. The next story, Ruth, is amazing. About a family that is almost dying, is going to disappear. They went looking for a better future, but the husband died, his sons died, and it's through a young Moabite and her decision to identify with God's people that the path for redemption is being built. From this family, Messiah will be born. It's worth spending the time to study these stories.
And the lesson ends with a heartbreaking story for every parent. In this case, the priest Eli and the prophet Samuel, who were very committed and faithful servants to God, had their children go just the opposite way. Was this only a personal and a family conflict and a loss? Again, I would say no, because it carried the consequences for a whole nation of believers, a nation that witnessed the evil and the sinful things that those children did.
As parents, we can closely relate to the great controversy. Can you force the good? How do you deal with this free will with your kids? The struggles and suffering of the parent for the well-being of his child. We can get a feel of what God is going through. His kids want a king now, but we will deal with this next week.
God always wanted to help his people, no question, but he depended on people to fight the fight and to deliver his promises.